everyone. I would like to start off by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This territory is covered by the Peace and Friendship Treaties of 1725. The treaties did not deal with the surrender of the land, but did set out the rights and responsibilities that settlers and Mi'kmaq people owe to one another. As such, we are all treaty people. I'd also like to take a moment to welcome everyone today, regardless of your race, culture, nationality, faith, gender, sexual orientation, age, ability, or income level. I would like to pass along a warm welcome to our guest speaker this evening, Reverend Marianne Lucas Jeffries. Reverend Marianne Lucas Jeffries is one of the coordinators with the Diocesan Environment Network, which is a network within the Mission Outreach Social Justice Task Group of the Anglican Diocese of Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island. Established in 2012, it has 3 coordinators and approximately 550 people connected to the network, most of whom are Anglicans and most of whom live in Nova Scotia or Prince Edward Island. Marianne, the floor is all yours.
Okay, thank you. So people can hear me and see me well, I expect. So thank you very much for letting me speak tonight. It's important to me to be able to connect with other people in the NSEN, and it's really wonderful that the Diocesan Environment Network is able to be a member of the NSEN. One of the things that we're very committed to is the idea of working together, complementing each other and building on all our strengths. And so that's why I'm here tonight. We have been a member for a few years, and we have been, as Alyssa said, we were established in the spring of 2012. I'm going to back up just a second, and I'm also going to share my screen. So, and I'm going to go to the first slide instead of that one. So anyway, I'm going to tell you a little bit of history and background to the establishment of this environment network. And so, in the spring, late spring, early summer of 2011, we had what we call a diocesan synod, which is an annual, for anybody who's not Anglican, it's an annual meeting, which actually is held every 2 years, biannual, and where Anglicans come together in the Diocese of Nova Scotia and PEI, and we discuss all the sort of normal matters and normal business of the church, as well as present resolutions on things like social and environmental justice issues. So at that synod, and that was just before my arrival in the diocese, the bishop at the time, Bishop Sue Moxley, asked the people, about 400 of them more or less, what the most important thing facing Anglicans in Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island was. And this is in 2011, so it's 10 years ago. They said the number one issue was the environment and climate change. And so I'm quite proud of the fact that that was an issue with the church at the time. So moving on, I appeared on the scene in August, and the following spring, the bishop called me into her office, asked me if I would form what she called a working group or task group on the environment. And I said, yeah, I'd love to. And inside I thought, oh, a whole lot more meetings. Not sure whether or not I like that idea or not. I'm in full-time ministry and already doing, my 50 to 60 hours a week. And so anyway, with that, I left and I headed back for my parish. By the time I got back to the parish, I thought, no, I was a community development worker in the past. I don't think we need a whole lot more meetings with people who really aren't interested in the subject, just been appointed because, or coerced into being part of a committee. I think what we really need is we need a network. We need to be able to say that the whole world is welcome to be part of this network. And we're going to call it a network. So we have less structure and we have more action. And that was the reason for that. And so, we started a Facebook group. We got people connected to each other. It was all about communication, really. And I'm sure that the NSEN can deeply appreciate this, because I think in a lot of things we're running sort of parallel on this. Anyway, it was established in the spring of 2012, and it's 9 years now. Well, 9.5 actually. And actually, the number has gone up again. So there are more than 600 people connected to this network. And we don't want members. We don't want structure. What we really want is action. And yes, they're mostly Anglican, mostly from Nova Scotia and PEI. But we also have said, let's throw open the doors here. We don't need to be structured. What we need to do is have an impact on the environment. So we have people from other provinces. We have people from other dioceses. A diocese is kind of like a province. It's a geographic area within the church, within, in our case, the Anglican Church of Canada. We also have connected and have been really anxious to develop relationship with organizations that have common cause, and that's caring for the environment. And so we really have tried to build relationship with environmental groups within the church and environmental groups outside of the church. And in the midst of all of this, because, we live in a virtual world and you could be anywhere, we have people from as far away as Uganda and South Africa and England and Vancouver and whatever. And so this environment network has grown and continues to grow. And I think it grows because it's relevant in today's society where we know and acknowledge climate change and the climate crisis. It's relevant. And our goal is to influence people, to cause them to love this planet in a way that will cause them to take action that will help us deal with this climate crisis. So our mandate is to live out what we call the fifth mark of mission, and that we have 5 of these things identified within the church, some of them just as focused around social and economic justice and human rights and all those other things. And the 5th one is specific to strive to safeguard the integrity of creation and sustain and renew the life of the earth. It's, not a minor task, but you might as well, reach for the top. And so that's the basis of what we do. That's what we always go back to when we want to think about whether or not we're actually, what are our goals and how are we accomplishing them? And are we actually achieving those goals? So anyway, we got kind of 3 steps in doing this. We want to be a resource to regions within our diocese, which is, in our case, Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island. We want to be a resource to groups within the church, like the Anglican Church Women, for example, like youth within the diocese, any other group that forms, even the Diocesan Council, which is the overarching body for the diocese. We want to impact individual Anglicans within the diocese too. And we want to encourage and support them in their call to care for this planet. So in order to do that within the church, we offer speakers or preachers. Sometimes we go and we speak to different groups within the church or within different parishes, because we have about 100 parishes in the diocese. We offer preaching on Sunday morning. We offer information on particular times of the year when churches celebrate things that are related to caring for the planet. Earth Day, Rogation, which is a real puzzler probably to a lot of people who aren't Anglican. Rogation is kind of the beginning, and Thanksgiving is the end. Rogation is the time when we celebrate the spring, when we celebrate the planting of seeds, the land that the seeds are planted in, and the hands of the people who actually do grow the food that we eat. But that has turned into very much an environmental focused kind of time in the church. And so that happens in May. We also have a month that all of Christianity basically has adopted, which is called Season of Creation. And so from September the 1st, which is happening this coming week, until October the 4th, we celebrate creation. We give thanks for creation. We express our appreciation for it, but we also make commitments to caring for it because we recognize our responsibility in it and caring about it. Probably, you know, as I'm learning more, because I still have a lot to learn myself, caring about this planet is the thing that's going to make me act differently. So we have this time called Season of Creation. And so over that period, we encourage every parish, every church to do something that will acknowledge the fact that this planet is here and this planet gives us so much. And we need to also play a role in that and be able to lessen our impact on it in negative ways and increase our impact in positive ways. So we provide information on like how to do a Sunday church service that will fall in line and highlight the fact that we're celebrating this particular season. We have things like book studies we offer. We offer resources to different churches for this. And I'm proud to say that the Diocese of Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island engages in that more than any other diocese in Canada, anywhere in Canada. We also provide information and connect parishes that are engaged in greening the church buildings. So, you know, we can't just profess, we can't talk the talk without walking the walk. So if we're not engaged in energy reduction in our churches and reducing our environmental footprint, then we're hypocrites. And so we try to provide information. We don't have to know this. We don't have to be the experts, although some people, we've identified individuals who are Anglican who have made themselves experts. But what we need to do is know what the resources are out there so we can help different churches in their efforts to be greener. We've made a commitment to reduce across the country to reduce or eliminate single-use plastics. We have made a commitment in the diocese to divest of fossil fuels. And actually what we did was we call it an investment in renewable energy instead. So our fossil fuel investment has been transferred to renewable energy projects. And now we're actually offering renewable energy grants to churches as well. So we need to be the go-to people so that Anglicans can understand how to do this, where to do it, who to connect with, where they might get some money. We also, well, like I say, we've got this new renewable energy fund, so we can offer that to parishes as well, and we have the divestment policy that I mentioned too. So that's the church part, the inside part. Then there's the outside, the diocese part. And so we commit to build networks, to make connections and develop partnerships with not only the broader church, but also other faith groups and secular groups as well. Church, groups outside of the church, but groups that we share a common interest with, and that's caring for the planet and dealing with the environmental crisis. So we have an international Anglican group called the Anglican Communion Environmental Network, also known as Green Anglicans. We have a national church group called Creation Matters. I have a cat here that's going to get in the way now. Every Zoom meeting should have at least one cat, right? We have a national church group called Creation Matters. We have an ecumenical, multi-denominational group called Kairos Canada. We have another one called For the Love of Creation. There's a group that's multi-faith called Faith in the Common Good that's really good about providing information on greening church buildings and other things. Citizens for Public Justice does advocacy work, as does Kairos Canada. We have relationships with groups like or through groups like the NSEN. So thank you for your work and what you do to help us do our work. And then we have other groups that we connect with in a really, I think, good relationship kind of way, you know. And I think about Extinction Rebellion, where we have supplied them with meeting halls, meeting space, you know, when they don't have when they don't have if they don't have funding and money, then we can provide space because we have, you know, about 100 or maybe 150, 200 buildings sitting around the province that are just waiting to be used. And then, you know, there's the Ecology Action Center. There are a variety of different environmental groups, and I'm not claiming formal partnerships. I think it's the informal building of community that really makes a difference. And then we want to be involved in affecting change on the big issues. In the church, we talk about praying, learning, and acting. So you can't just do one thing or the other. You have to do these things, you know, in harmony so that you actually can be really effective in your action. That's kind of our belief. And so we do have, like in our environment network, we have somebody who is very involved in advocacy. She's passionate about it. We have a number of people who are passionate about it, but she's willing to coordinate that part. Like I say, we provide space for environmental groups. And generally, it's been like, where do you want to have your meeting? I'll contact the local priest, and more or less, almost 100% of the time, we get a yes. And we get to encourage Anglican engagement. So if there's a Friday for the Future strike, like a global strike, then we can bring out Anglicans out onto the street in various communities across the region. And then we also like to share information. So we probably have as many questions for different environmental groups as you might have for us. And that's what it's all about, right? Communicating, sharing information, sharing resources, sharing knowledge. And then we have, you know, various programs that we undertake ourselves. So like, although we believe that we really don't have to know it all or do it all, we don't even have to come up with original ideas. What we do have to do is support groups and people in their efforts to care for the planet. And that's what we're really committed to. So we had developed at one point the Hope and Inspiration Art Gallery, and now we call it Gallery of the Arts because we have music involved in it, we have poetry, we have visual arts as well. It's online. We had received a grant from the Diocese, but then we had a pandemic, and so we decided we were going to go ahead with it. And what we're doing is encouraging artists who care about creation and highlighting their work so that they can use that gift to make a difference. We have things very much like, I would say almost identical to these coffee houses that we call Thursday evening gatherings. So every Thursday night in the fall, the winter, and the spring, we have a gathering that's open to anybody from 7 until 8 o'clock at night, more or less. Sometimes we go into overtime, especially when we get really interesting topics like blue whale poo, or, you know, solar energy, or deforestation. You know, how do we deal with the issue of deforestation? How do we understand you know, the impact of the forest floor on you know, absorbing carbon and that sort of thing. So they're quite, on the whole, they're quite factual, science-based. There are times when we bring in the arts, though. So we want to bring in different aspects of this, the arts. We want to bring in spirituality, because as First Nations people will tell you, that's a huge part of what causes us to be motivated to do these things, and to be effective. And it affects us in a very different way and drives us to make change in a very different way. So we cover a variety of topics, and we have First Nations brothers and sisters come and talk about how we can understand the wisdom of that more. We also provide an ecological grief support group, and that's a once a month group that's been very successful and very active. And we have a Nancy Blair, who is a counselor, a certified counselor, who is incredibly committed to, oh, there, the cat just changed the screen, who is committed to grief support, and she is she's committed to the environment. We provide, for those who want the spiritual support and engagement, a morning prayer on Friday mornings. We have book studies, and we do everything from, we're doing braiding sweetgrass. We're doing another one for Season of Creation, both of them for Season of Creation. We did Laudato Si, the Pope's encyclical on the environment, but they're not all religious. There's some quite factual, but a lot of it has a spiritual component that's not necessarily Christian, but takes in things that are important that will help us be better at what we do, including get rid of the cat. Anyway, we also provide, and we did provide a whole weekend at one point because the diocese provided this, the funding for it, and we used the Tatamagouche Center for anybody who was an environmental activist who was feeling like they really just needed a break. They needed to be refreshed. They needed to feel energized. And so we provided a weekend retreat at the Tatamagouche Center. We provide day retreats as well for people who are really want to feel grounded before they go out and they take on the world. And in a more practical, hands-on sense, we're also this fall providing a symposium on the practical aspects of greening a church. We're involved with other groups too, and I'm proud to say that the parish of French Village in St. Margaret's Bay is doing some extensive work on developing a conservation area with the land that they have, and in the midst of that, also incorporating a green burial site. So, the sky is the limit. We just try to do what we can to provide the support and the encouragement and help people feel energized, motivated, and willing to take on the world so that we can deal with this climate crisis. Oh, one last thing. As a result of all of our work and efforts, what we found was that internationally, the Anglican Church, which takes in about 80 million people, committed to recognizing the climate crisis and committed itself to action around it. That was in the spring of 2019. Later that spring, our diocese submitted to our synod the same type of resolution that was more specific to our diocese, and we recognized the climate crisis and made commitment to action on that. There were, like I say, about 400 people at that meeting, and not only was it passed unanimously, but the numbers of people who wanted to get up and speak at the mic because they were so passionate about it got so long that the bishop had to shut it down. He said, if you're not going to come up with something really new and original that you're going to say at the mic, we could be here for days. And so that's how committed people were. Then what they did was they influenced the national church. So another 6 weeks later, the national church adopted more or less the same motion. And so we've really time and time again made that commitment to recognizing the climate crisis, recognizing that there's an environmental crisis, and committing ourselves to the type of action that we can undertake with others, not alone, with everyone as partners, so that we really can deal with this crisis and affect change. Thank you.
Thank you, Marian. Thank you so much for your presentation. I just have 2 questions for you, and then Dylan does have some as well, if that's okay. So my first question for you is, what compelled you to originally become a coordinator with the network?
My bishop told me I had to.
Were you surprised at all?
No. She knew that I had my whole life a passion for justice, and that was social, economic, environmental justice. One of my real passions in the past have been food security issues. I've spent a lot of time engaged in a variety of justice issues. Marched and demonstrated for peace, been involved in refugee issues. I did the gamut. I kind of felt like I had been on the fringes of the environment network, not so much in the center of it. And then all of a sudden, I find myself thrown into this. I didn't necessarily feel equipped, but I will tell you too a story. When it was probably about 2 years into this, that the provincial government had a fracking consultation. Might people remember that one? And so we decided that we would send people to different consultations, as many as we could people we could round up to end up. So I went to the one in Windsor, and I'm not wearing my priest shirt and collar tonight, but I did wear it then, and I do say that a fair amount, simply because I want them to understand something. Because when I went to that meeting, and there were 350 people at that meeting on that hot July evening, and I walked in looking like a priest, people asked me if I was lost. And I said, no. I said, I wanted to be here at the fracking meeting. And they said, well, why? And I said, well, because the church cares about this. And they said, really? And I thought, oh, we have some work to do here. We need people to understand that we do have an interest in this. And so somebody said, well, enough to speak about it at the mic tonight or so. I said, well, yeah. And I thought, well, I don't really understand enough about fracking, but I did understand enough about the precautionary principle to catch the guy who was leading this consultation in kind of a misleading kind of statement about that. And I was able to stand there and help people understand. I said, yes, we do care, because the church wants scientific proof that fracking's safe. Well, of course, he couldn't give me an answer on that, because there is no scientific proof it's safe. And so, and our bishop went on all kinds of media about 2 years later, really pushing back against fracking, really committing the church to, and we've had a lot of commitment on the fracking issue. But then, as a result of that, when the Paris climate talks were on, and we had a big demonstration in Halifax, about 600 people marching down Spring Garden Road, which they wouldn't be able to do today because I guess it's all torn up. Anyway, they asked me if I'd be the last speaker, because they said that as a priest, I should be able to deliver a message of hope. And we don't want people to end up just totally bummed out all the time and overwhelmed by the fact that we have this incredibly huge issue to deal with. What we really want is people to be able to say, okay, we got a big issue, we're going to fix it.
That's wonderful. Do you feel like involvement in networks like this are normalizing social justice within the church and encouraging more people to get involved?
I hope. Fortunately, the diocese has a history of justice. It does. But on the other hand, somewhere along the line, these things can get forgotten. And so people just kind of develop a complacency at times. We're normal human beings. We do this sort of thing. But just the fact that in 2011, 10 years ago, they had identified climate change as a major issue, that says to me that they were never complacent about that. Now, how we deal with it, understanding the nuts and bolts of being able to deal with it, as kind of your average Nova Scotian or Prince Edward Islander, that becomes a bit of an issue. So what we really want to do too is empower people. We want to help them know some of the simple things that they can do. As a matter of fact, sometimes people think it's too simple. What do you mean all I have to do is put caulking between the foundation and the building to save a lot of heat? And that's too easy. That's too easy. It has to be harder than that, and it doesn't. Not always.
Thank you so much, Marian. I'm going to pass it over to Dylan.
Yeah.
Hi, Marian. That was a wonderful presentation. And I was really interested in when you spoke a bit about how churches were looking to become more energy efficient, environmentally friendly, and you guys are offering some help with that. And, a lot of churches around here, and I'm sure all over the place, they tend to be really old buildings. So I'm just wondering what type of difficulties have these churches encountered when it comes to trying to make them more environmentally friendly, and if you have any advice for any churches. Maybe there's someone who may watch us down the road, but what were some of the challenges with these older buildings?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of challenges. One of them is viability of the parish itself. So if the church is struggling just to keep the doors open, then they don't feel empowered to be able to take the next steps. Like I say, actually, it's the people at the older buildings who have said to me, well, no, putting that caulking around, that's too easy. That's just got to be too cheap. Like we need to be spending a lot of money, don't we? And we can't afford this, but they can afford these smaller things. And so convincing people that those things are doable and that they can make a big difference. We have provided resources, and Faith of the Common Good has been from Toronto has been really good about providing information and resources. And they have a program with the United Church of Canada where they have an employee at the Ecology Action Center who we can access. But that's the thing, is letting people know that there are people like Ben Grider at the Ecology Action Center who they can just pick up the phone and they can call and he can give information. And one of the other things we do is we've had Ben every season in our Thursday evening gatherings talking about some concrete thing like that. We have forms that, checklists that people can use, but it's encouraging people from building committees in the parishes to be able to do that. So we really have been, like the last time we had been, we focused on inviting those people, and we had a significant number of people from building committees and parish councils. So they're the kind of people that we reach. We don't need to just preach to the converted, the people who are already interested in the environment. But parishes that can be good examples are parishes like the parish of French Village, where, like I say, they have 2 kilometers back of land, sort of a regular residential sized wide lot, that takes in a whole lot of territory, and they're looking at converting it to a conservation area because they don't want it deforested, and they do want it preserved in a way that makes perfect sense, along with this green burial, which will have a whole new impact. And then that's where one of their oldest buildings is, Dylan. And what they did, because they want that building to be converted into a space where people can kind of come and go, and they can hold environmental programs in it and that sort of thing, they put in what they call the echo loo. And the National Church, through the Anglican Foundation, gave them a grant to put in a composting toilet because they don't have running water and all the amenities. So, and then on Monday night, they've had 4 students for the summer doing a lot of scientific research on the land itself, the land, the wildlife, the vegetation, and they're going to do a presentation on Monday night in that church, to explain the type of research and the way they've engaged 4 students, university students, in doing that research. And so, but I will also tell you that St. Mary's Church in Glace Bay has been exploring the idea of solar panels. And we have like a half a dozen parishes in the diocese that are looking at solar panels. And if they can, when one of them gets it, then the rest of them can follow really easy. So it's lead by example. A lot of it's lead by example. We're also looking at the idea, is there economy of scale? And can we get some kind of group buy for solar panels? Because we have big roofs.
Yeah, I think, you're exactly right. The roofs are pretty big, so I mean, there's lots of space for solar panels.
And the pitch is really good too. So
yeah, that's a really big church. So I'm not sure if there's a lot of new churches being built or not, but is there any concept to integrate energy efficient, like when building a new church? If I'm sure they're probably not building a lot of churches, but has there been any churches built recently that have integrated like environmental sustainability in the whole design of the church? That's something
not in our diocese, unfortunately, I'm ashamed to say. But what I will tell you is we have some parishes that are exemplary examples of greening, and they are often the newer buildings. So I look at the Church of St. Andrew in Cole Harbour, and they can check off that whole list pretty well. They had somebody from Faith in the Common Good, Stephen from Peterborough, Ontario. He came down and he did this whole green audit. And it for a church, it's not just the building, although he's a expert on historic buildings, so he knows how to deal with old churches, and he's an expert on energy efficiency in church buildings. So he has like the right combination of skills. But that's who Ben Greider answers to with this United Church project. So Ben has also garnered a lot of these skills as well. We're not really putting up new buildings. We have to measure whether the old ones are going to remain in place. Are we able to put a long-term investment in here? Are these churches going to shift, and are they going to end up being, decommissioned and sold and turned into, cafes and things like that? So we're not quite sure what's going to happen in those communities. But again, there's a parish that right now I have to say will remain unnamed, that is undertaking a building project where it's going to be a pretty big building, but they're going to be energy efficient, and they're looking at solar heat and this sort of thing. We have one parish that is has a church built around the 60s or 70s, and they're looking at a solar farm because they have the pitch of the roof isn't on the right angle, like it's not facing the right way, but they have a significant amount of land, and they're looking at a solar farm. So there's innovative ways of doing it. And I think that, as we're moving along, we're getting more and more people on board with this. And I think this symposium that we're going to put together for the fall is also going to be really helpful to that.
Yeah, it sounds great. I really like how, you're talking about efficiency in the churches, and it sounds like a really meaningful project. And like you said, it's once one church does it, and another church will kind of follow suit. It's like a snowball effect. I've seen that happen on different occasions. But yeah, thank you for that, and I'm looking forward to the possibility of St. Mary's getting some solar panels
Yeah.
on their roof. That'd be nice to see. And yeah, so can you talk a bit about how you involve youth? You guys have, I think we chatted maybe a bit about that, but yeah, I think youth is really important, and maybe you could just chat a little bit about what kind of youth programs you guys have, if any, and how they're involved.
Well, yeah. And that's not the easier one. And I gotta say, like, in spite of the fact that the church on the whole has been able to make the technological shift, during pandemic times, to technology and being online and all that stuff, one of the things we've really struggled with is maintaining our relationship with youth. So that's been a tough one. But I will tell you, in past years, pre-pandemic, we get 100, 150 kids at a youth camp. And like one I was involved with, how many years? Maybe, but the best part of 10 years ago now. It must have been like 6 or 7, 8, maybe. The whole weekend was devoted to caring for the environment. So we really engaged youth in that. We have a Sunday school resource for kids that came out of South Africa. One of the bonuses of being an international church is we can draw on things from far and wide. And the Church of South Africa has a great resource like that, so that kids can focus on it. We have, like at the cathedral, for example, the kids have been growing a garden. So and then there was another youth conference 2 or 3 years ago where they focused on justice issues, environmental justice being one of them. Our youth coordinator for the diocese has a degree in environmental studies, so she's really cognizant of this and she really understands it. But we have, like with kids having to study online during the pandemic, especially during the lockdowns, with parents working from home and working online all the time, one of the difficulties has been, and now we're opening up again, we have another chance of, changing that, change and recapturing the audience, I guess. But we've had a hard time engaging youth through the pandemic. And I will admit that.
Yeah, there's no question it's been really hard, even engaging with anyone during the pandemic. It's all a learning experience for everyone switching to this online platform. And
yeah, when they're like 8 or 10 hours a day already online, they don't want to go on Zoom again.
Yeah, Zoom, fatigue is a real thing. Definitely,
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely been feeling it lately. And yeah, but we're really appreciate you coming on here and chatting with us this evening. I just had a couple more questions. I'm just interested to know. I know you already answered this a little bit, stating that the bishop asked you to be a coordinator, but I think there's a lot of passion behind that, and I just wanted to know, what drives you to continue this work, and what are some of the rewards that you've seen over the years while doing this type of work?
My favorite thing of all in any kind of ministry is being people's cheerleader. I love supporting people, seeing them grow and accomplish things. And what better place than this? Like, what better place than caring for the environment? what better way of seeing people's eyes light up when they think that they can really, and believe that they can really, and I believe that they can really have an impact. And so being people's cheerleader is like my favorite thing of all. So, but my whole life, this sense of justice is, forefront in my life. As a matter of fact, my call to ministry really was when it was integrated in with an experience I had when I actually won a trip to East Africa in 1999, an essay writing contest that was a very national thing with all kinds of big organizations, advertising it and collaborating. And I ended up in East Africa, in Ethiopia and Kenya. Couldn't go to Djibouti as planned because the war broke out when we were up near the front. So what's happening actually in Afghanistan has really had a profound emotional effect on me this last couple of days. But yeah, it was the whole food insecurity, the degradation of land, the deforestation. One of the neat things in Ethiopia is if you want to find a forest, well, if you see a clump of trees, there's a church in there because it's against the church. Like the church does not allow a single tree to be cut on its land. It's one of the few places where there's no deforestation in a country like Ethiopia, where food is so incredibly important, and where the multinational corporations have taken all the good land and they've left all the terrible, poor rocky land to the Ethiopians. And so it's that sense of justice so when I found out, and it was a secret to me, when I found out about the type of justice work the church was involved in, it was like, wow, I got to tell the whole world about this. And then I found that when I was talking in churches, it was like making so much more sense to me. And I thought I wanted to be part of something like that.
Yeah, and it's crazy how fast things kind of move along as well. When you start something, it's like, where did the time go?
Yeah.
I know for myself, I've organized lots of events, and I think one of the biggest things that I enjoy is organizing a large event and just seeing the community come out and smile, and they're all working towards one common thing, right? Trying to better their community and the environment. And that's, it's just a huge reward, right? And
Totally.
really appreciative of your work and your dedication and passion. And
likewise, Dylan.
I also I know during the presentation you discussed a bit about how you offer churches throughout different areas for environmental organizations to host meetings. And I'm just wondering, for anyone watching, is there a specific email or contact that they could send an email to inquire about, say, a space in the CBRM or Halifax area?
Yeah.
Is there an email that we could pass along to those organizations?
Yeah, I'm going to ANDIONSPEI@gmail.com. I'm putting this in the chat.
Perfect.
And what I didn't mention was that, like everybody else, we're gone virtual. And so we have not only an email, we have a website, we have a Facebook page, we have, occasionally I use Twitter, not a lot. But we have a Hope and Inspiration Art Gallery online as well. And so my big question to you folks is, how can we support the NSEN and the members of the NSEN, our fellow members? How can we collaborate and support? I mean, you folks are wonderful because you have brought us together. And so I hope that we can play the role that works for you, that helps NSEN be much more successful, as successful as you are right now, but even more successful, because what you are doing is incredibly important. And so I thank you on behalf of the church.
Yeah,
And I won't ask for a big answer right off the bat, but if you have a list, that's fine.
Yeah, and you know what, Marion, like just offering a space for membership to have meetings can make all the difference, especially for small shop organizations who have very little funding and support, right? So just something as simple as offering a free space where people can have meetings and get together and discuss important environmental issues. That's even a huge help in itself, especially where you have so many churches throughout Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for that. And just for anyone watching, the email for that is endionspei@gmail.com. And yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to pass things off to Alyssa. I don't know if she has any more questions.
Oh, I was going to say one thing, Dylan. You inspired me to think about this. When at one point I'd been interviewed by Halifax Magazine, and I was telling her that we had offered the parking lot of St. James Church in Armdale and Halifax to Extinction Rebellion for a global demonstration. They were part of the global demonstration. And so the priest said, well, I'm going to invite them inside. I'll even ask them if they want a blessing as they go off to their demonstration. I said, great. Well, it's a darn good thing they were offered that, because it poured rain that day. And then the leader of it called me the next day and said, oh, I hope that we didn't leave a mess in the church. Extinction Rebellion. This is, like people are going, wow, like they really cared about that. And I said, yeah. Anyway, so she said to me, she said, yeah, I would have come back and made sure I cleaned up, except for the fact that I got arrested. I thought. and then the journalist asked me a couple of days later how we felt about being associated with groups that got arrested for civil disobedience. And I said, well, our leader actually got arrested for civil disobedience 2,000 years ago, so I think it's okay.
Oh.
So we do want to support groups.
That's awesome.
So.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Marion, for joining us tonight. It was really insightful, and it was really wonderful to learn more about what you're doing with your network and how advocacy for the environment and social justice issues has a big role in the church. So thank you so much for that. And also a big thank you to everyone who has joined us either on Zoom or through the Facebook Live. And like Dylan mentioned, this will be available to watch down the road. So I hope that you share it, you rewatch it, and that those here take something away from this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.